The Treasures de Satan releases The Treasures of Satan in America and The Devil's Moneybags in the UK, is a French occult horror comedy trick film written, directed, and edited by Georges Méliès. Released in 1902, it also stars Méliès, with the rest of the cast going uncredited, as was typical for the time. At 2 minutes and 34 seconds, it's silent, and I would classify it as appropriate for anyone 10 years and up due to some very mild violence. We know basically nothing about the production of this film, except that it was likely filmed at Georges Méliès' home studio outside of Paris, and was released by his production company, Star Film Company. As with all Méliès films, the sets and costumes would have largely been designed and created by Méliès himself. He would have also been in charge of the film's special effects, including its wirework, pyrotechnics, and substitution splicing. There are some conflicting accounts regarding the exact plot of this film, with the 1905 American catalog for Star Film Company claiming that the film tells the tale of Satan breaking into a man's castle to steal his money. The catalog, however, contains outright mistakes regarding the film, including the number of money bags, and the summary just doesn't match what we're shown on screen. In my opinion, The Treasures of Satan tells the story of a man breaking into a castle and attempting to steal the money there in a chest, unaware that it belongs to the devil. He's taunted by the money bags themselves before having to contend with demons, the chest which sprouts legs, and Satan, who sees to his fiery execution for his greed. This film is very fun. While some Méliès films have languished due to their simplicity, this is an example of one that thrives because of it. It's just pure, delightful spectacle. The performances are as lively as ever. Georges Méliès perfectly communicates the thief's intentions and frustrations with his trademark slapstick, and the male demon he encounters executes some downright awesome acrobatics. He backflips like it's nothing, it's crazy. All of this is, as to be expected, complemented by cute costumes and a very detailed painted set. Obviously, though, the focal point of this film is its special effects, and they do not disappoint. From the dancing money bags and smooth substitution splices, to the trunk with legs and the thief's spectacular demise, it's all so well executed on a technical level. The action never lets up or grows repetitive, which is sometimes an issue with Méliès' shorter, plot-light trick films. In this case, it's just a whimsical little watch. I am going to give The Treasures of Satan a 3.5 out of 5. I'd recommend it to anyone with an interest in early cinema and special effects, as well as fans of horror comedy and just general slapstick. The Cakewalk Infernal, released in English as The Infernal Cakewalk, is a French occult dance trick film written, directed, and edited by Georges Méliès. Released in 1903, it stars Méliès as the devil and Jean Delcy as one of the dancing ladies. At 5 minutes and 13 seconds, it's silent, and I would classify it as appropriate for all ages, if it weren't for the racism. As with The Treasures of Satan, we have almost no information on the production of this film, outside of the fact it was likely filmed at Méliès' studio outside of Paris, and was released by his production company, Star Film Company. One minor detail that's kind of interesting is this film reused masks for Méliès' very famous 1902 sci-fi adventure, A Trip to the Moon. One thing we do know about, though, is the dance that's featured in this film. The Cakewalk is a syncopated march-like dance with a humorous edge that parodies ballroom dancing, but can evolve as it progresses, especially when it comes to arm movements. Created in the 1800s, it was invented by slaves, likely on plantations in Florida, almost certainly to mock the stiff dancing and excessive formality of white slave owners. These same slave owners would often come to watch the dance, totally oblivious to the fact that they were the butt of the joke. Initially developed by slaves for cakewalks, which were dance contests with cake as a reward, the cakewalk spread as a dance across the South and maintained its popularity among Black Americans even after emancipation. Unfortunately, after it was performed at the 1876 Centennial Exposition, a World Fair in Philadelphia, The dance was quickly co-opted by, say it with me, white people. It was employed heavily in racist minstrel shows from that point forward, with white performers donning blackface and grossly exaggerating their expressions as they danced. To quote the legendary Black American writer and music critic Amiri Baraka, "If the cakewalk is a Negro dance caricaturing certain white customs, what is that dance when, say, a white theater company attempts to satirize it as a Negro dance? I find the idea of white minstrels in blackface satirizing a dance, satirizing themselves, a remarkable kind of irony." There isn't really any plot to speak of here. Satan arrives in hell and seemingly introduces the cakewalk to its denizens, and that's it. The first time I saw this film a couple years ago, I enjoyed it, except for, obviously, the blackface. I even gave it 3 stars. I was won over by the moving sets, good special effects, and fun dancing. I especially love the part where Satan's legs and arms detach as he dances. But my opinion has changed. Now that I've researched the history of the dance being featured, learning where it came from and seeing how it was explicitly taken from Black Americans while still being tied to them for racist purposes, has made the whole film pretty disgusting to me. This isn't an instance where a film has a racist component you can isolate away from the rest of the story or otherwise sort of ignore as a bigoted byproduct of its time. The blackface here is the feature. This was a screen adaptation of a minstrel show. Did Méliès know the history of the cakewalk, the depth of what he was doing? Probably not. But he was an educated man who traveled and lived in a major metropolitan area. There were Black Parisians in his day. He even expressed outrage over other forms of oppression, like the anti-Semitism that fueled the Dreyfus Affair. So we know he had the resources and empathy to question oppressive systems and racist propaganda, and he simply didn't. He was a man of his time and his environment, we say, and that's true. I think trying to hold historical figures to certain standards can sometimes be a thorny endeavor, as can writing off an artist's entire body of work because some of it's harmful. But it's necessary when reviewing art to recognize the tangible, real-world impact it had and still has. Minstrel shows were a tool of oppression, a means of not just mocking, but dehumanizing an entire group of people for the purpose of continually denying them basic human rights. I believe Méliès had the capacity and tools to know better and didn't bother, choosing to unquestioningly perpetuate racism for profit because he was a white European who was doing just fine not examining anti-Blackness. This film exemplifies that. There will be instances in the future where I otherwise like films that have harmful elements. But these films will have something else to offer. They will not have just been straight-up adaptations of a white supremacist tool. I will also understand if and when other people cannot look past such elements to enjoy the film just because I do. We all have our hard lines, and this is one of mine. Not to continue lecturing, but we do have a duty to examine the media we consume, how we initially respond to it, and how we reevaluate it when educated, especially in times like these. I like this film despite a disturbing racist element, but having since learned just how deep the racism goes, I can no longer enjoy it. I am not sure how to rate the Infernal Cakewalk. It has good choreography, sets, costumes, and special effects. It definitely conveys whimsy, but all of that is rendered null and void for me because of what it is. As such, I'm choosing not to give this a rating at all, and to offer no recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it. My next review is going to be another twofer covering the French occult trick film The Witch's Revenge and the French horror comedy trick film The Monster. You can find me on Blue Sky at Under the Fleapit, and if you like what I do and want to support me, my coffee donation page is linked in the description. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want, it would be very appreciated. And until next time, this has been Under the Fleapit. Stay spooky!